Okay, everybody. Hi, I'm Bill Carlson with Café con Tampa. And sorry about the technical problems for anybody who was trying to get on at 3. But we're finally on with Tony Zappone, longtime famous Tampa media person and celebrity. Really lucky to have him online today. Somebody we've been trying to get for our Friday morning meetings, and we couldn't get him. So we're very lucky to have him here online. Tony, tell us about yourself, please.
Well, gosh. Of course, I'm born and raised in Tampa. I've lived no other place except when I was in the military. When I was 14 years old, I started shooting pictures for the old Tampa Tribune, and then continued on from there in the news business. When I was 17, I started shooting film for WFLA TV, and then went over to Channel 13 later. So I've been heavily in the news business. I really enjoyed it a lot. I don't do that anymore, but I've had some incredible adventures in Tampa. One of the biggest adventures is seeing how it's grown from the time I used to walk around downtown and there was nothing to now it's a big metropolis.
Tell us, Tony, you're full of stories. And by the way, for anybody watching, I've known Tony since I moved back to Tampa in the 90s. Tony was a big supporter of the Hillsborough Education Foundation back then, and I met him then. One of the things is you were friends with Arch Deal. Tony Holloway, the original Tiger King. You were the photographer who took the pictures of John F. Kennedy. Tell us some of your stories. Why don't you start with the Arch Deal stories? Tell it. I think what did he pass away a few months ago, right?
About a month ago, when I started at WFLA in 1965, we worked weekends together. Arch did the 6 on the weekends, and we became very close friends, and we were friends all these years, 55, 56 years, and it was a great adventure. I mean, can you imagine being 17 years old and seeing your stuff on TV? I didn't even have a car. I never told them I didn't have a car. And I would hide my bicycle a block or two down the street. And when they gave me an assignment, I walked out like I was going to a car. I'd get on the bicycle, regardless of where it was. I never took assignments like miles away, but anything within 3 or 4 miles, I could get on a bicycle, and I did it, and it was fun.
Hey, tell everybody who Arch Deal was. 70% of the people in Florida didn't grow up in Florida, and a lot of people don't remember the story. Tell us about that and how you knew him and what your relationship was.
Well, Arch was the #1 anchor in Tampa. He did, at that time, it was different. He did the 6 o'clock news and the 11 o'clock news Monday through Friday, and on Saturday he did the 6. And he was singularly in charge of writing the 11 o'clock news, and he lived out in Baycrest. And oddly, his daughter married a man who was quite famous, who became also a friend of mine, Marty Ballin, who was the founder of the Jefferson Airplane, very big band of the 60s and 70s.
So tell us the story of Arch Deal parachuting.
Oh, God. I wasn't there. There were 2 times. The first time I wasn't there, but he tried his main chute, didn't work, and his alternate chute didn't come out, and thought he was going to die. And this was at Cypress Gardens, which was in Winter Haven, where Legoland is now. And so he fell.
So he's a big celebrity. Everybody knew who he was. He goes to parachute. He can't open either. He pulls both ropes. They can't open up the chute. And then what happens?
Fell to the ground. Luckily, the trees, I think it was an orange grove, broke his fall. He laid flat there, and nobody rushed to the scene because they figured he was dead. But when they got there, they were amazed. He was telling them jokes.
And what, did he have like every bone in his body broken or something like that? How?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He was in the hospital for 6 or 7 weeks in Winter Haven. And at that time, he was the main anchor of Channel 8 News. So
then the amazing thing that he used to do, and tell me if I'm wrong, well, when I was involved with the Hillsborough Education Foundation in the 90s, I think every year, like either on his birthday or anniversary of that, he would skydive it as a fundraiser, right?
Yes, he would. He sure
did.
He
got back up in the plane and kept going.
Have a little celebration. And I think he was 40 years old when that happened. So it was like almost a half a century ago.
So tell us about, so your photographs, Lynn Dingfelder used some of them for her documentary about Kennedy in Tampa. So Kennedy was in Tampa a few days, 3 days before he went to Dallas. And that's why we have the statue there in front of the University of Tampa. And I think the reason why the road is called Kennedy Boulevard. Tell us your story with Kennedy.
Well, for those who weren't around then, Kennedy was the idol of many young people. I mean, he was just great. And I loved the man. And of course, I wasn't into politics. I just liked him. And I read the paper where he was coming to Tampa just a couple of days ahead of time for security reasons. And I wanted to get credentials. I went to the Chamber of Commerce. They were giving credentials and they wouldn't give them to me without a letter from some media. So I got a letter from the school yearbook, gave it to them, and they gave me the credentials. Anyway, I did not have a car. I think I just turned 16, and a guy by the name of Gary Williams, who I went to school with, took me around in his car. And everywhere Kennedy went, I was a little bit ahead of him. But I remember when he landed at MacDill Air Force Base, it was like a dream come true. And I never, ever, at that point, never imagined that I would be able to shake his hand. It just seemed so far away. I'll never forget, I was on a flatbed truck where all the press were from Tampa. And when the plane came down, a bunch of these photographers from the wire services came in, and they started taking over the truck. I just started fighting with them, Hey, get out of here. I'm just in my place. So I took pictures, and then after he reviewed the troops and the flag and all that, he got in his car and went, actually, he took off to shake hands with some of the people. And here I am on a flatbed truck. And I said to myself, I'm going to go where he is. I wasn't supposed to. I jumped off the truck, and all the older men said, "Come back here." No way. So I got pictures of him shaking hands. The Secret Service were very perplexed, but they were more relaxed on the base. They figured the security was very good on the base. And then, part of it escaped me, but he was in a car, a Lincoln, waiting to go to the officers club. And I walked up to him and shook his hand and said, "Welcome to Tampa." And about that time, he took off. He said not a word to me, just smiled. And
so tell me why? So your photos of him are pretty famous. Why is that? You got closer than anybody else, or some kind of special access?
Well, I've often wondered that. I presented the pictures to his brother Robert Kennedy at the Justice Department. He was Attorney General 9 months later, in August of '64, and part of it was my feelings of love for the guy. And part of it was I just wanted to get some really good pictures. Now, the 10 or 12 that are often used are the best. I took hundreds of pictures.
Where are those pictures? Did you put them in a library somewhere?
USF has some. Actually, I gave them, copies, digital copies, and I have them on my computer. And, and they're up on the internet, and I also wrote a book, was printed, and put the pictures in there along with a narrative.
So where that statue is at the University of Tampa, is that where he actually spoke? Do you remember? Or is that where the truck was that you were talking about?
No, he went by there. The truck was on the tarmac at McGill. Okay. And when he came off the plane, I shot pictures of him from the flatbed truck, which incidentally was loaned to the base by the company my father worked for, Florida Steel Corporation.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, I thought that was cute.
Hey, so tell us that you were friends with Jean Holloway too. There was a front page story about him just a few days ago. Tell us about for anybody who wasn't in Tampa at the time. Tell us about him and his restaurant.
You would ask me about that guy. When I first met Jean, he had married a close friend of mine, and she introduced me to him. And they had lived in Lakeland for a while, but when they moved to Tampa for that restaurant, a big, huge restaurant near Busch Gardens on Busch Boulevard. I am so sorry many people didn't get to see it because it burned down. But
so this is like late 70s, early 80s, something like that?
Yeah.
And it was called the Seawolf?
Right.
And it was a huge themed restaurant. It had, I never went in there. I think I was too young at the time. But
four dining rooms with buffets, and you could see had birds and turtles and everything out the windows, and a lot of millions of dollars worth of stained glass windows. And it wasn't normal construction. It was all wood construction. It was very, very grand place.
And he would bring live animals in there too, is that?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I walked in to his office, which was in the back on the second floor, to see him one time. And, he was always, I was very squeamish about the tigers. He had a tiger in there. He sicked him on me, and I took off out the door, and the tiger took out after me. And finally, I screamed and asked Jean to get the thing away. It didn't bite me or anything. It was just playing.
And would the tigers just walk around in the restaurant by all the tables?
No way. His insurance company wouldn't have that.
Okay.
He would bring them and just sit them in his office, and he didn't do that often. But once in a while, he would have like a thing out in the parking lot, and he would bring the tigers, and he had lions of whatever,
So tell us what are some other things that you miss from old Tampa? Like one of the things I remember when I was a kid, my Cub Scout group went to the USS Wreck one. I wonder if anybody remembers that.
That was the ugliest thing in Tampa. I was at Channel 13 at the time, and I had a major campaign to have it taken away.
So it's your fault.
Yeah, you better believe it. I take credit for it. It truly was ugly. And what happened was,
this is an old submarine. What was it? World War II or something? Old submarine
yeah,
that was on behind where
one, and they put it up right there by Curtis Hickson Hall in the back there. And the curator of it got arrested for making advances to some of the kids that went through there, and that's when they got rid of it. They hauled.
So what else do you? That was just one that I thought of. What are some things from Tampa from the 70s and 80s that you miss?
Well, even before that, I miss the old downtown. It was small, and it was wonderful to go down there on the bus. I remember little things like the coldest, best Coca-Cola in town was a machine for a dime, and I always walked down there from the Tribune. It was on Jackson Street between Franklin and Florida Avenue, where the phone building is now. Yes, they tore it down, but it was great. I really enjoyed downtown, and I remember my mother used to send me down to make payments at a store called Mangles. She had a credit account there, and I would walk. She'd give me some money to spend, quarter, 50 cents. I'd walk clear over to the University of Tampa. They had a fountain on the veranda. It's not there anymore. I don't know how they ever put it up in the first place, but it was a building little thing, a hut on the veranda, and on the left side as you went in were the mailboxes, and on the right was a soda fountain. They had the best milkshakes in Tampa. It was my secret. They were good, but it was worth the walk.
Still open.
Yeah, it was.
So what else? What are some other interesting stories that you covered? Can you tell us a couple, short stories of really?
Well, I got some stories, not necessarily. I got a lot of stories that I covered, but some of my favorite
G-rated audience, by the way, too.
I'm sorry?
This is a G-rated audience, too, by the way.
Oh, some of my favorite stories were when I traveled. I used to go to Philadelphia a lot, and Benjamin Franklin did me a big favor. We have a personal relationship. I was in downtown Philadelphia. I was 14 or 15. My aunt had given me $5 to take the trolley downtown and spend time downtown and then go back home. And I think I bought a meal at Tad's Steakhouse. I bought a little book for $1 or whatever. But eventually, at the end of the day, I had no money to get back on the trolley. And it was a long way. So I sat and thought, and I said, well, I had remembered when I was at elementary school, watching a film. Once a week, they show us films, and they showed a film of Benjamin Franklin's grave, and they had money all over it. 50 cents, quarters, dime, nickels.
The statute of limitations might not be out yet on this, so you
That's
might
all
not
right.
tell the story.
Anyway, they haven't read me my rights, but so I said, that's where I'm going to go. Well, when I got there, there was a lot of money on the grave was flush with the ground. His headstone was horizontal with the ground, and it looked real old, but there was all kinds of money there. People were all over the place. And so I waited for about 20 minutes. Some would leave and some would come, and some would leave. Finally, I made up a little thing, ladies and gentlemen, in 5 minutes, at Betsy Ross's home, so-and-so, I named 4 or 5 big stars are going to be there, and they're going to have a big performance. And anyway, I made it sound really great. Everybody left. I got
you made it.
$6 or $7 in change.
Can you tell us that somebody's asked the question about the Tampa Tribune? So you worked at the Tribune. Tell us, unfortunately, my kids will grow up not even knowing what the Tampa Tribune was. Can you tell us what it was like back then? I remember these enormous offices with just seas of people around. And tell us about it.
Well, when I started the Tribune, it was on Kennedy Boulevard in the old building. And it was really a nice family. I got started, the coach at my junior high school was a sports photographer there. And I started shooting sports pictures. My very first guy that I sort of worked with was Tom McEwen. And he liked me and he sent me out on assignments. And eventually I started taking feature pictures and pictures of accidents and fires. And I just got really, I had no car. I did it all in a bus.
You were mainly a sports photographer then?
No, I was everything. I started in sports and then just branched out.
I mean, people don't even, probably, people under 40 or 30 don't even know who Tom McEwen was. Can you explain to everybody who he was?
Well, Tom became sports editor of the Tribune 1960, and he was there for about 40 years, and he was very, very popular.
Is it true that he was very involved in bringing the Bucks here?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. He was part of that committee. I give half the credit to Tom, and we became good friends forever. The last time I saw him I had lunch with him at the old Valencia Gardens restaurant, about a year before he died.
I miss the old Valencia Garden. I wish some folks could open up some of these old restaurants.
I miss this. You just don't even know how I miss the place.
I tell Charlie Miranda, I wish Don Pepe would open up because I always craved that salad that they had with all the cheese on top. Anything else that you missed from old Tampa? Any final stories?
Well, I got a lot. I used to love one of our most beloved mayors was Nick Nucio. And he was a mayor before Dick Greco in his 60s. And when he became older, he lived with his wife and he was retired. But he was the one that founded Lowry Park. They called it Fairyland. Not there anymore. They tore it all down, built the zoo. But he loved that place and he loved kids. I used to pick him up at his house. He used to have lunch with him. His wife was a tremendous cook. And we used to drive and walk through Fairyland together. And, he is a legend in this town.
What do you think about, so for anybody who wasn't around then, Fairyland, you can Google it. There's a whole website about it, but it was before Busch Gardens, before Disney, before Lowry Park Zoo.
Oh, it was a place for people to take the kids, yeah.
And what do you think? So Mario Nunez and Richard Gonsmart and others saved some of the statues out of a trash pile, and the Gonsmarts paid to repaint them and restore them, and now they're at Eulalie. What have you been to see those?
Oh yes, Richard Gonsmart is a very close friend of mine, and he's still got some in line. They were in storage out in a yard somewhere, and he had them, did an excellent job of restoring them, and now he's having a hard time keeping the kids away. Yeah. He put up signs and everything, but they really add a lot. It's an adult place there, but the kids enjoy that. So it's something to attract the kids.
Well, Tony, we're reaching the end here. I could talk to you forever. For anybody who doesn't know Tony, he's full of stories and he knows everybody. And we've been trying to get him.
Do I have time to tell you about when I took George Washington's glasses?
Tell us.
I was at Valley Forge with my mom and dad, and I was a big freak of souvenirs, but I wanted genuine souvenirs. So we were the second floor in Valley Forge of George Washington's headquarters, and his spectacles were on the nightstand, and there was a big red rope. And once my parents went on down the way, and my brother and sister, I went under the rope. I took his spectacles and put them in my pocket. So anyway, I was maybe 11 years old.
You gave them back?
Well, let me tell you what happened. We got about 2 miles out away from there. And I said, Dad, look what I have. George Washington's glasses. Oh my God. My father thought that the government was looking at him. He made a U-turn, went back and made me turn him back to the park ranger, who was very happy to get them back. Didn't even know they were missing. And he was very happy. And he kind of was stern with me. And of course, my father was a little upset. But the next day, there was a story in the papers all over America about the incident, about me taking those glasses. They didn't
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, made the news back then. But I love that story. And I'm not a thief or anything. I just wanted his glasses. And I'm sorry.
I'll Google that later. Hey, but we have to go. Thank you so much, Tony. I appreciate everything. And sorry to anybody who tried to get on earlier. The technical difficulty was on my end, not on Tony's. But Tony, please stay in touch. And we hope to see you maybe sometime in person when we do Café con Tampa again. But thanks for all you've done for Tampa and to keep Tampa's history alive.
Thank you very much.